with that, I want to introduce Michael Kuckelman. Everybody knows Mike Kuckelman from Seneca. This is Michael Kuckelman, who's a distant relation, but he's an attorney out of Atchison. He's got a law practice in Kansas City, and he is our Kansas GOP chairman, director. He's the grand poobah. So he was at the convention, the 2020 convention, and got to meet with the president. I believe he got to meet the president and got to attend that. And we just thought that it'd be great to get some insight on the president and the way the national election is going, and also a little bit about Kansas. So, Mike.
Thank you, Ray. My name is Mike Kuckelman, and I am the state party chair. We have one paid full-time employee at the Kansas Republican Party, and that's our executive director, Shannon Golden. The rest of us are volunteers. I have to work a full-time job to keep up with paying the bills and paying my way around the state, doing things that we do. I know that there are, I think here you all call them Kuckelmans. Somehow when we got to Atchison County, we became Kuckelmans. I kind of like the pronunciation here better. All of us came from the same place. We all started here in Nemaha County. We came from Germany to Ohio to Nemaha County, and then some of us ended up in Atchison County. I now am in Kansas City, have a law practice in Kansas City, but still spend a fair amount of my time in Atchison County. I have a farm there in Atchison County, and where I prefer to spend my time. So Ray asked me to visit about the convention, about the state and federal elections, and the state. So let's start with the convention. The convention, as you know, we went forward. We had an in-person convention. There was a lot of criticism by the Democrats of that, having that convention, but it was scaled down. A couple things about the convention. There were about 300 of us present at the convention, and normally you'd have tens of thousands of people in an arena, and a lot more boisterous. We weren't able to do that. We were only able to gather minimally and do the business that we needed to do. Now, I still think there were some shenanigans going on in North Carolina with Democrats trying to stop us from meeting because we couldn't get a quorum and change our rules. We needed to meet. We needed to meet. It would have been a real problem had we not been able to meet. We might not have been able to nominate President Trump for 4 more years. We were able to make it work. We had to pare down. We could have no more than 6 people present per state. They asked us to get that down as low as we could. The minimum you could do is 3 because you need your national committee man, your national committee woman, and you need your state party chair so that you have your RNC delegation. We were able to pare down to 4. Now, there are a couple of things that came out of the, that I read in the press that was interesting. They said that we opted not to have a platform. The Republican Party opted not to have a platform, and instead was just going to do what President Trump said. That is not true. We could not adopt a new platform because we didn't have a platform committee because we couldn't meet to do that. That takes hours and hours of work. So our 2016 platform stands. That we do have a platform. We are not a party without a platform. I get a kick out of that when I see people make that kind of a comment. It's just simply not true. The other thing I would say about the convention, all of our meetings at the Republican convention started with prayer and with the pledge. And One Nation Under God stayed in there. I saw the Democrats, someone sent out a tweet and said President Trump had lied. He said that they removed One Nation Under God from their platform, took God out of their pledge. And then I saw them explain they only did that at 2 of their caucuses. Well, I'm here to tell you we did it at none of our caucuses. We still have God in our pledge, and we're going to keep it that way. We're never coming away from that. And the origin of that, 1956, President Eisenhower, one of our Kansans, he signed that into law. I mean, if you pull out money out of your wallet, every single piece of currency will say under God. Absolutely it does. Every single time it does. You go to the courthouse, you'll see it in the courtrooms, you'll see it on the courthouse walls. Many law enforcement officers put it on their patrol cars. In God we trust. It's always there, and we are going to keep it that way in the Kansas Party. We firmly believe it. I firmly believe it. Well, let's talk a little bit about President Trump and why we need to re-elect President Trump. There are a host of reasons. I'm going to just cover 2 quick points with him. The first one, because it's so on point right now, President Trump gets to appoint federal judges, as you know. And all of a sudden we're faced with a vacancy on our U.S. Supreme Court. And President Trump gets to appoint another judge to the Supreme Court. And of course, there's no doubt in my mind that President Trump should appoint another justice before his term is over. Whether he's reelected, and I think he will be, but whether he's reelected or not, he should do that this term. There's no reason to delay that until his next term. I think the Democrats want to do that so that if they somehow can pull off the election, that they would make that determination. Senator Biden in 2016 was tweeting that they should appoint and confirm another justice. Now he's arguing just the opposite. But since the Republicans control the White House and the Senate, they definitely should make an appointment, and they definitely should confirm another justice to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's just no doubt about that. So everything that we're seeing in the media, I wouldn't even argue about it. I just sit back and say they need to do it, and let's all move on. It's the right thing to do. It's within the law, and it would be foolish not to do it. So let people babble on television about it, but just know that it's the right thing to do. It's the constitutional thing to do. President Trump has more than just the U.S. Supreme Court to take care of, though, or to handle. He's appointed over 200, probably around 250 judges so far. And many of those judges are federal district court judges, and those judges matter to all of us. He has vetted and appointed over 250. These are Article 3 judges. We call them Article 3 because it comes from Article 3 in our U.S. Constitution. These judges are appointed for life. There's no retention vote. Here in Kansas, we have retention vote of our judges, that are state court judges. Some areas they're actually elected. On the federal level, an Article 3 judge, once appointed, is appointed for their lifetime. These are important positions. We just had one in Kansas come out of committee, and now we'll go to the full Senate for a vote. A federal judge here in Kansas, an appointee. And Senator Feinstein again is calling him out, attacking our Kansas appointee because of positions he took in briefs on behalf of his client, the state of Kansas. So the state of Kansas, the legislature passed laws. Toby Cook, when he was Solicitor General for Kansas, his job is to handle these on appeal at the U.S. Supreme Court, and he did. He argued on our behalf laws that were enacted by our Kansas legislature, and they're attacking him on those issues. And she has a history of that. If you think about some of the other appointments we've seen, I don't know if you're aware, there was a judge appointed, a district court judge, federal district court judge, in Omaha, Nebraska. And they attacked him because he is a member of a radical men's organization. I heard laughter. Somebody already knows what radical men's organization he's a member of. He's a member of the Knights of Columbus, a men's fraternal organization who raises money to benefit children who have special needs, Special Olympics, for example. They asked him at the confirmation hearing whether he would resign from that organization if he were appointed. We're talking about the Knights of Columbus. This is crazy. It's just unacceptable that they would do that. One of President Trump's potential nominees to the U.S. Supreme Court, Judge Amy Barrett, she has 7 children, I think, or 8. I'm not sure which. When she went through her last confirmation hearing, you know what they attacked her about? The line was, the dogma lives within. They were talking about her Christian faith, her Catholicism. Apparently she wears it. She acts like a Christian. She lives her life as a Christian. And that was a criticism? That the dogma lives within? There should never be a religious test applied to any judicial appointments. Yet I can give you 2 instances where we've seen that with the Democrats in President Trump's last term. I personally hope that he does appoint Amy Barrett. I think she'd be a fantastic justice to the Supreme Court. And I actually admire her, that you can tell by the way she lives her life, or as they said, the dogma lives within. I think that's fantastic that she does that. So we need President Trump because we need to keep handling the judicial appointments the way that we have. The other reason we need President Trump, and there are lots of them, but let me give you just one quick one and a second one. And this just came out last week. Senator Biden put together a proposed budget to give us a look at what his budget would look like if he became president of the United States. And not many newspapers have carried the detailed information, but there's a business school in Pennsylvania called the Wharton School of Business, well known, a very highly thought of school of business. And they analyzed the budget that Biden said that he would seek to have adopted. We can't afford that budget. It adds about $5.4 trillion to our budget. Now, I know when we talk trillions, people's eyes glaze over. Before I went to law school, I was a CPA, and I couldn't handle the excitement of it, so I left and went to law school. So let's talk though about 5.4 trillion. Let's put some context to that. Do you remember candidate Hillary Clinton? She had a proposed budget. Biden's budget is double, more than double her 2016 proposed budget. More than double what Hillary Clinton wanted to spend. It's just unimaginable we could do that to our country. In fact, the Wharton School of Business said that if that budget were adopted, it would consume 24% of our GDP. So everything we produce in this great country, the first 1/4 of it would go to the federal government under the Biden budget. I don't think we can afford that. But you know, you don't see it very many places. I've started carrying it around with me because it was in the Wall Street Journal last, I think it was Tuesday. But they actually ran an article about it and laid it out. And I, of course, now carry that article with me because I've not seen it in other media. But it's something that people need to be paying attention to. That kind of a budget is just, we just couldn't handle it. Sticking with the federal, talking about our U.S. Senate race, we need Congressman Roger Marshall to be elected to the U.S. Senate. And the way we can do that, we need three things. One, we need to get out the vote. We need all of you to, obviously I know this group will be out to vote, but can you take somebody? Can you get somebody else signed up? Can you encourage somebody? Do you have children? Do you have family members? Do you have people who say they're busy? We need every single person out there voting. And as I go through parts of Kansas, I know that Roger Marshall will carry their district easily. I know that he will. But we need more out of these districts because there's an area called Johnson County, Kansas. I live there. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Some of the votes in Johnson County, Kansas, and what I'm seeing people in Johnson County do, I just scratch my head. And what is going on in Johnson County? And there are probably lots of reasons that people are frustrated with Johnson County throughout our state. Historically, I know that there have been. But this is a real head scratcher. But we have to ask more of the rest of our state to counterbalance Johnson County. How about that? You have to hear from someone ask you to do more than you're already doing to help with Johnson County. But that's what I'm here to ask you to do. We need voter turnout in this state. We're going to spend a small fortune in the Kansas Republican Party working on get out the vote because it's critical that we have it. Second thing we need to do with Dr. Marshall is keep sending him money. Anybody that can. Because they are just dumping money into this state. You remember the primary? They put in several $1 million, the Democrats did, from out of state to try to influence who would be the nominee for our Senate seat. That hasn't stopped. That money's still coming in. I went through her FEC report recently. I do a lot of litigation in New York. I spent years there. I was one of the 5 lawyers on the World Trade Center litigation appointed by the Southern District of New York. I spend a lot of time in New York City. I have friends who are lawyers in New York City. I'm going through an FEC report. I'm seeing lawyers that I know. And I know that we don't agree politically at all. So they have Chuck Schumer. Why did they get to pick our next U.S. Senator in this great state of Kansas? It's not the way it's meant to be. We have to counter that spin. We have to counter it with get out the vote. We have to counter it by giving money. The other thing we have to do is keep Dr. Marshall out in front of groups like this, keep him up on television. The ads that Dr. Bollier run just make my head spin. They keep putting her out there as somebody who gets along with Republicans and Democrats. you know, she voted with the Democrats. What probably 90, what was it, 90%? 90% voting record with the Democrats. Is there anything moderate about her at all? I mean, they are selling something that can't be sold because it's not true. So we need to keep working on that. You know, the other federal race, of course, Jake LaTurner, that race looks really good for us. But again, we've got to get out the vote. Jake has a candidate running against him that I asked him the one question because I heard that she had been speaking about how she defunded the police before that was such a cool thing. She had been working on that, and then she says that that's a bad label to put on it. Well, I don't care what label you put on it. It's a bad idea. We need more funding in law enforcement, not less. And you know, I do a lot of constitutional law, and I litigate some of those cases. And I'm here to tell you that 98% at least of our law enforcement officers are good, honorable people. But they're just like any other profession. There's a minuscule group that are bad apples. They're no different than doctors. They're no different than lawyers. We've got them in our legal practice. We have to disbar lawyers every year. But you can't define an entire group of people by 2%. Instead, we have to deal with the 2%. This defund the police that she has, that's a crazy idea. So we need Jake LaTurner. Our state races, we have so many important state races. Here's why. We're doing two things right now. I mean, having Governor Kelly as our governor is a real headache when you're a state party chair. It creates all kinds of problems for me, but I know it creates problems for you as well. We are working already. We have to multitask. We are working right now on trying to develop people to give Republicans an option who to put up to run against Laura Kelly. We can't afford a second term of Laura Kelly. And I know everybody sometimes when I start talking about this thing, they're like, can we just get through November 3rd? No, we can't. We have to start talking about it soon. We have to take some steps November 3rd, and here's what I mean by that. We need a veto-proof majority in Topeka, both the Senate and the House. We have to have it. If we do not have a veto-proof, a supermajority in Topeka in both chambers, we can't control Governor Kelly. And we have redistricting coming up. Do you think the map won't look funny on some of our districts? We can't afford to not get out and support all of these state candidates. We have to have a supermajority in Topeka. It's just, we don't have any choice. It's the only way we can control her. Let's talk about COVID. You know, the Republicans on the committee, on the Finance Council, they had to vote to extend that by 30 days. There were some reasons, law and order for one, that had to be done. But one request that we made was, if you're going to do that, talking to Republicans, extract from her a pledge, a written pledge, because I need her to write it down because it doesn't always mean anything if she just says it. She will not shut down businesses in this state again. Our economy can't take it. Do you know where we rank right now in unemployment? We're 51st. We're dead last. This state is dead last in terms of unemployment. Somebody asked me the other day, said, how can that be? There are 50 states. Of course, so we're including the District of Columbia, obviously, in that calculation. We're even behind the District of Columbia on unemployment. We're dead last. We cannot take another shutdown in this state. It's not possible. Our economy can't handle it. She did agree to put that in writing, but it wasn't easy to get that from her, which scares me that because you would think, looking at the current situation, any governor would say, I'll put that in writing all day long. I'll put it on billboards if you want me to. We're not going to do that. We're not going to shut down our economy again. We're in the bottom 5 states, by the way, with COVID testing. When I see people say that the governor's done a good job with COVID, I don't understand where they're coming from. We're in the bottom 5 states in COVID testing. You know, the Wall Street Journal ran an article, and you know how they put in bold sometimes for people who won't read the whole article, they give you some important points, and it said Kansas fudged the numbers. Oh. We got caught. We didn't. Our governor did. And Kansas Department of Health and Environment, Dr. Norman, got caught. It was right there in the Wall Street Journal. Kansas fudged a chart to make it look like they were heroes in the way they had handled the mask mandate. We're bottom 5 in COVID testing. How could she claim success when we don't even have the testing in this state that other states do? And I don't know, my head will explode if she tries to blame that somehow on our former Governor Brownback. He's been gone for how long, but she blames everything on him. You know what her solution is for the revenue shortfall we're going to have in this state? She has no plan. Her plan is the federal government will take care of it. You add that to Biden's proposed tax plan, and we're really in trouble, right? But the other reason as a Kansan, we can't look to the federal government is because then every other state's going to. Have you heard about this place called Illinois where they have Chicago? California? I mean, this is like going out to the most expensive steak restaurant and you have a salad, and California and Illinois have the best wine, appetizer, soup, salad, and the best steak, and then you get done and you say, how about we divide it up equally? That's what it would be like relying on the federal government to fix that revenue shortfall. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. That's not a plan at all. So, again, we have to keep her in control. The way to do that is with these state elections. Somebody asked me about freedoms and about COVID. Did any of you hear what happened up at Benedictine College in Atchison? Are you familiar with that situation? It was outrageous. Outrageous. You know what they tried to do? Benedictine College had a positivity rate. They were doing 100% testing. Bear in mind, Kansas were in the bottom 5 as a state under Governor Kelly. The president of Benedictine College said, we're going to do 100%. They had about a 2.6 positivity rate. To give that some relativity, in Kansas, we're over 10% positivity rate. So the students are testing about 20% of the rest of our state. So what happened next is mind-boggling. I was at a function in Topeka with the Kansas Chamber, and I got a text from somebody and said, did you hear what they're trying to do in Atchison? They're trying to quarantine 2,000 people by order. And I thought, that can't be right. They said there's an emergency hearing. I ran out to my truck and I got my computer and I went and sat in a corner at this event I was at and started looking at it. They issued notice at 4:45 p.m. that there would be an emergency meeting at 5:30. 45 minutes notice. And sure enough, they were going to quarantine 2,000 students who are testing better than everybody in the state. I got a copy of the order. I've never read an order like this in my life. I do constitutional law. This was the most overreaching order I have ever seen, and unconstitutional. Quarantine is meant to take someone who is sick and you say to them, you have been diagnosed with this illness and you can transmit it. Therefore, we need you to go home and stay home. If you're a sick person, you have to stay home for the benefit of the rest of us. It was never intended that we would grab a group of people, a whole bunch of people, and take away their civil liberties, take away their right, their freedom. Yet that's what they were doing in Atchison. They did this for 2 days. They tried to get this order passed. And the county commission there said they were working with KDHE, which I thought was fascinating, that KDHE was involved in this. I'd really like to tie it back to KDHE. Because if the governor was doing this, you know what they were going to do? These students were going to have a good outcome. It was predictable based on their positivity rate. They were going to have a good outcome. They're going to lock these people up for 2 weeks, and then they're going to claim victory because they're going to say, hey, look what happened at the rate. And this is the model we should be using in the rest of the state. That's what was going to happen. We immediately went to work. I had several lawyers who volunteered to help. We started putting together petitions, habeas corpus petitions. On a quarantine order, you're entitled by statute to an order within 72 hours of asking for one. We were going to file these on the Friday before Labor Day, because that's when the order was signed. It was never entered. It was never filed with the clerk, and therefore it didn't have effect. It's not effective until it's filed. But the order had been signed by the local health officer. 2 days in a row they signed 2 different orders that were as overreaching as you can imagine. So these students, somewhere between one, because I know we had at least one student on a hearing, and 2,000 students, however many it was going to be, we're all going to have a hearing within 72 hours, paid for by you, the taxpayers. And I told the county commission that I had estimated each hearing would cost about $1,000. So if 500 students want to have a hearing, you're going to spend $500,000 Labor Day weekend losing on an unconstitutional order. But I was concerned that if the first student walked out of the courthouse and said, I'm free, the rest of you, 1,999 of you, are still committed, are still locked up, all of them were going to parade right down to the courthouse. Who wouldn't? Remember, if you were a college student, didn't know what you would do. You immediately said, let me go get my hearing. These kids otherwise are going to be locked in their dorm rooms for 2 weeks. They could come out 3 times a day to collect a boxed meal, and that's it. That's it. 3 times a day they could come out of their dorm room, walk down to a tent, and pick up a boxed meal and take it back and eat it, and do that for 2 weeks. I still can't believe that anyone who thinks anything about this thing called the Constitution would think you could do that. But here they were about to do it. I mean, this is a mask mandate on steroids. I've never seen anything like it before. I'm happy to report to you that as of Friday, when that 2-week, I called it house arrest, which they complained about. They said it's a quarantine, not house arrest. I said, go look up the definition of house arrest. This is house arrest of people who don't have it. Some of these kids have 2 negative COVID tests in their hands. They all had to have 1 before they could even report to the campus. Many of them, once they arrived there, had a second one, and so they're holding 2 negative COVID tests, and they're about to be locked up for 2 weeks. What happened to Benedictine College can happen in other places. It really can. I mean, this is something we have to pay attention to and to work on that. So when it comes to our freedoms, folks, don't take them for granted. This COVID, you know, I had used the analogy before that happened during World War II. Sometimes when people get scared, we're willing to give up the next guy's constitutional rights. Don't take mine, but if it's for the safety, I'm willing to trample the next guy's constitutional rights. That's a dangerous thing to go down. You know, we did that during World War II. President Roosevelt he issued that order, and they interred Japanese Americans. These were American citizens. And you know, President Reagan, later issued an apology, and he said that it was fear that drove that unconstitutional order. It was fear. And our Republican president, Ronald Reagan, years later, issued a formal apology and explained that. And we always have to be cognizant of that. We never, ever allow the person next to us to lose their constitutional rights unjustly, because if it can happen to them, it can happen to you. So we need to take all of this quite seriously. All right. Yes, sir.
So this whole scenario, people that signed up 2 orders, accountability?
Yeah. Okay. You ask a very good question. And this is true probably in every county in Kansas, all 105. The person who signed it is the local health officer, the county health officer, who is not elected. Not elected. Now, the county commissioners in that county said there was nothing they could do about it because the health officer had the authority. That's false. There's a statute right on point, as you know, because you don't have a mask mandate. The county commission can override that. This one just chose not to, but they were telling people at the hearing, at the emergency meeting, there's nothing we can do as a county commission. It's like you're doing it by doing nothing. You are doing it by doing nothing. Yeah, that was dangerous. So. All right, well, I know that it's time to eat. Ray, do you want me to take a couple questions, or do you want to?
If anybody else has a couple questions, let's take these questions.
All right.
Okay, we're talking about election fraud. You know, in the state of Kansas, of course, we have voter ID and all this kind of thing, and I'm sure there's going to be mail-out ballots. How do we safeguard against collecting or harvesting and that in Kansas, and then nationwide? How do we go about rectifying this situation?
Right, so election fraud. First of all, I think Kansas is probably one of the better states. Kansas, by the way, has allowed advance voting and mail-in ballots for years. What was different this cycle was Kansas sent out applications. And my objection to sending out applications, you go to a college town, for example, fraternity house or a sorority house, the turnover there is frequent. But somebody may have registered to vote. Now this application, or lots of applications, show up for people who no longer reside there. Somebody could try to make use of that. The application, I mean, at some level in this state, we have to take a little bit of responsibility to go vote. It's not that hard in Kansas. You can advance vote now. You can vote early vote, advance vote. You can do it. I mean, it's so easy. I'm traditional. I still go at 7 o'clock on election day. I don't know why, because I just get a big thrill out of it, much to the chagrin of my children. In the August primary, I have 3 adult children. They're college kids. And I made all 3 of them get out of bed and go vote with my wife and myself. And the one son said, "Dad, I don't have to work until 3 o'clock. I can go vote between now and 3. I said, "No, you're going to vote with me right now." It's not that hard. You know, there's so many things that we can do. So these added, sending out the application, I thought was a step too far. We were opposed to that. But I keep reminding people, Kansas has made it so easy to vote. There's no reason to do that. I voted, I was living in London for a period of time, and my wife and I voted by fax. Did you know you can vote by fax in Kansas? You can. You can. I called and explained to them. They said, "Nobody's ever voted by fax." I said, "It's in the statute. I can vote by fax." They said, "Well, someone will see your ballot when we take it off the fax machine. We can't promise you that your ballot will be confidential as to at least one person." And I said, "Well, that doesn't really bother me because I'm pretty much big mouth about who I vote for, so I'm not really worried about it being confidential." But I appreciated them telling me that. Yeah, we can vote in this state. It's so much easier in this state. We do have good safeguards, but that was a problem, I thought, the application. I was opposed to that. I talked to Secretary of State about it. I think he knew that I thought it was a dangerous idea. He had reasons that he gave that supported it, but I personally still am opposed to it. I hope we don't do it again.
Nationwide, what do you see?
Well, you know, you start seeing some of the stories that people, the ballot harvesting, as you talk about. I mean, there are areas, there are pockets where there's real concern about that. President Trump has stated he's very concerned about it. It is difficult. These are important, you know, a ballot's an important thing. Look at the security, those of you know, when you renew your passport, how secure that is to get your passport. But yet a ballot, we're just going to send out these applications. I think there are parts of the country, Ray, where there are problems. I don't see it as much here in Kansas. I think we're fairly safe, but why let your guard down? Why let your guard down? You know, you have a lock on your house. Many of you have never had a burglar. Why do you keep locking your door? Just leave one locked. My point being that, you know, what do they say? An ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. We all lock our door when we leave. At least where I live, you do. We have to. I probably shouldn't use that example around here because I know that some people probably don't actually lock their door. but you know, the point being that I've never been burglarized, but I lock my door all the time. And I think it's the same with the ballot. Just because we can't show repeated instances of it doesn't mean we should let our security down. Those ballots are important. You know, the right to vote, that's a big entitlement. That's a big responsibility, and we should treat it like that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all very much.